and welcome to our webinar today on September 13th. Glad to have you guys all on board and appreciate your time today. Today we are talking about navigating the unseen in childcare when everything goes wrong. My name is Nicole Farkas. I am the Senior Member Advocate and Business Development Director of Inspire Care 360, and we are so happy to have you joining us today. Our featured guest, you can see my email and everything right there on the screen. Please feel free to reach out via my email. I will also post it throughout the webinar so that you have access to contact me and if you have any questions. But we're super excited to have our guests on today, and it's going to be an action-packed session for sure. We are talking to Kate Woodward Young and Carrie Casey from directortexas.org. And some of the things they're going to be talking about today is operational gaps that you can proactively prep for, compiling 4 strategies to protect your personal and professional balance within the industry, as well as learn from past challenges like COVID, wildfires, things that we personally here at Inspire Care have had challenges with, which are hurricanes. And then also embracing the community with changing power to your local, with your local Chamber of Commerce and connecting with them. Today, we are excited to have our Inspire Care General Manager and Vice President of Operations, Jessica Bright, hosting today. And one things just to keep in mind, we do like to let you guys know that this webinar does credit you for CEU certificate for the hour that you are with us. If you would like to see or to receive a webinar certificate, please feel free to copy this link. Sarah will also be posting it throughout the webinar. She is my behind the scenes partner in crime here today. We would love to know where you're from. So please, in the chat section, give us a hi and tell us where you're from, your school, what location you guys are in. We'd love to hear from you. I always like to stress in these webinars, they are for you. So do not be shy. Feel free to comment on things that you like, things that you would like to hear a little more about in the chat. And also, if you have questions, please use the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, and we will be sure to pass them along to the appropriate individuals, whether it's Jessica with Inspire or Kate or Carrie. Let's see who we have today. Brittany, welcome from Central Wisconsin. Very nice to meet you, or thank you for joining. We've got Robin from Kitty Junction out in Chicago.
Recording in progress.
And we are now recording. Welcome, Renee Cooley from Houston, Texas. And if everybody on the panel can just please mute yourself for the time being, that would be great. We also have Susanna Brewer from Kids Corral in Savannah, Texas. Welcome from Texas. And let's see, Anna Tatum from Bedford, Texas. We got a few Texas. Did you guys know? Little fact is that Austin is the biggest growing city now where everyone is moving to in Austin, Texas. So you guys are making the news out there in Texas. Let's see, Nikki Shai from Pueblo, New Mexico. Wow, great to have you on board. And we got Kansas here, Kim from Trailblazer Academy. Thank you so much. For those of you just joining, my name is Nicole Farkas with Inspire Care 360, and we are excited to have you on board today. We are going to talk about some great topics, talking about operational gaps that you can proactively prepare for. Also compile strategies to protect your personal and professional balance, and then learn from past challenges like COVID, because no one forgot that one. Wildfires, things like that, for solid readiness, things that you can do to protect yourself and be ready for those to happen. So we are super excited. And then also to embrace the community. changing the power of your local changer or chamber of commerce. If I can talk today, that would be helpful being the MC. Let's see, who else do we have today? Mickey, Overland Park, Kansas. Tina, hi from Dalton, Georgia. Welcome. We are so excited to have you guys on board today. We will be, if you can flip the screen there. We got some friends on board. So great, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, we were super excited to have our general manager and VP of operations, our cheerleader behind the scenes that keeps us all motivated and going. She also was an owner and operator of an indoor sports business with after school programs, kids campus, soccer campus. So if you can't tell, she's an athletic individual, puts us all to shame. But she previously also worked as a special education teacher. So she has a lot of tools in her toolbox, which is wonderful. And, you know, being here with Inspire Care 360, she is super excited to, you know, help out with children's growth, development, and working with all of our individuals here today. And she's committed to fostering the success of business and professionals. And you can see her email right there. And there is our fearless leader, Jessica, who keeps us all in line. We love her.
Well, Nicole,
But
you're
all
always
through positive motivation, all through positive motivation, I tell you.
No,
we're
I
never without a
appreciate
smile.
that. I really appreciate that, Nicole. You always give the best introduction. So,
I try. All right, well, I'm going to turn it over to you. Just really quick, one last comment for everybody. Please make sure that you use the comment section. We really encourage it because these webinars are for you. And if you have questions for anybody, whether it's Jessica, Kate, or Carrie, put them in the Q&A section. I will make sure that either Sarah and I will make sure that they go to the appropriate individuals. So you guys enjoy the show. I'm turning it over to you, Jessica.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, as Nicole mentioned, welcome everyone. We are super excited to have this webinar today and so glad that you could join us. And as Nicole gave me the glowing introduction, which I really do appreciate, but I am Jessica Wright. I'm the General Manager and VP of Operations here at Inspire Care 360. I have been a previous business owner, a teacher. I'm a mom of two wild boys that keep me going. They're 8 and 11. And I'm just super excited. This is my first time hosting the webinar, so bear with us here. But as Nicole also mentioned, please, we want you to be engaged. So ask questions in the Q&A section. Please tell us where you're from. And we just are super glad to have you here. So we'll move along here. And Sarah is in the background. She is helping us out today. So part of our agenda today is we do a few housekeeping items before we actually introduce our special guests. So one of the things that I want to talk about here is our IC360 rep. So as a previous business owner, I know that one bad review can cause you a lot of heartache and a lot of dollars. So having those star ratings is key, having good reviews. So IC360 Rep is one of our solutions on the platform. It does allow you to monitor, manage, and respond to online reviews. It's multi-platform, so you can have your reviews posted to Facebook, to Google, to LinkedIn, Glassdoor. There is a multitude of platforms that you can put those on. It allows you to, build trust and for people to see what you have. And one of the great things about this is that every star rating that's 4 or 5 star rating will automatically post. But anything under that, 3 stars or less, it actually comes to you as a business owner or director or whoever is filtering those reviews. It actually comes to you and you get to take a look at it to see why you got that low of a review and how you can improve. So this, we use this, for those of you that don't know, Inspire Care 360 was born from our fearless leader, our CEO, Tony D'Agostino. He had 6 childcare centers in Western New York, and he still has 3 of those. And he uses this with his schools And you would think, oh, maybe I don't want to send a star rating to someone who might not be happy with the school, but it's actually the other way around. It's great to get that feedback because there may be something that you're not sure that you could improve. And that's happened a couple of times. We've had a review come through recently about not getting enough artwork, and we were able to turn that around, and they went from a 3-star to a 5-star. So it is a great tool to add. And Sarah, we can click on to the next one here. Just a little bit more information here. Like I mentioned, you can have it post to Google, Facebook, Yelp. There's 2 other pieces to this that are amazing. You can also not only send out to survey families and current staff, but prospective families. So let's say you give a tour. There's a tool on here where you can send a tour survey. So you can find out, what did they like about the tour? How was their experience? Not only that, but also interviewees. So, maybe you interview a teacher and they decide not to come on board with you. You can send them a survey to see why, and then make improvements from there. So it is just a great tool, an excellent solution. If you'd like to know more about it, I know Nicole put some information down there, but feel free to reach out. We would love to help your reputation grow. All right, and moving right along. Super excited to introduce our special guests today, Kate and Carrie. And Kate and Carrie, if you'd like to come on, I'm just going to talk a little bit about you, so I don't want you to think I'm talking behind your back. So Kate and Carrie, they co-founded a director credentialing program. Between the 2 of them, they have 51 years of experience in assisting educational program owners. And I think they're trying to pop on here.
Yep. I think we're both here.
There we go. Hello, Kate. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. And I think Carrie's on here, but we'll see if she can get on camera and her microphone going.
I think I'm on. Yeah,
Oh,
as I
there
said,
you
I thought
are.
I saw her.
Okay, perfect. Now I see you. Excellent. All right. And when I first met Kate and Carrie, I thought it was great, just for the audience's sake. I know their names are up there, but Carrie said, just remember, I'm Carrie Curls. And I have not forgot that. So that's how I remember who is who. So Carrie Curls and Kate, I don't know. You just got a great smile. So we'll remember the 2 of you. So Kate she does specialize in marketing, business development, exit strategies. And then Carrie actually was a childcare center owner, and then transitioned in and pioneered weekend and online childcare administrator credential programs. So we're just super excited to have them. They have a phenomenal podcast, and they just seem like they're a lot of fun. Like, I really hope to get to Texas and hang out with the 2 of you sometime.
Anytime.
As a former Texan, when I talked to them, I said, it makes my y'alls want to come out. So Kate and Carrie, anything you want to add a little bit about yourselves?
I mean, I love working with directors and with teachers and helping them achieve their goals. It doesn't matter what I think they can do. It matters what they think they can do.
Absolutely. All right. And Kate, anything there to add? Or
just that we're excited to talk about how literally y'all can be prepared for when everything or anything goes wrong today.
Yes. Well, I know that I could probably write a book on when everything goes wrong in life, but that's not what today is about. So we're actually going to talk about when everything goes wrong in our, in the childcare industry. So so here's just some audience objectives we'll just get started here.
Sounds great. So when you think about literally everything goes wrong, a lot of times folks automatically think of natural disasters, and we all know the weather patterns are not what they used to be. And if COVID did teach us anything, you could think you're just going away for spring break and something's going to be done in a week, but that isn't actually how that worked out. And so today we're going to talk a lot about being prepared for the unexpected. And with that, go to the next slide. Oops. All
Well,
right.
that's very light.
Yeah, it says emergency preparedness versus being prepared. So see, sometimes things just don't come out how we want them to. So
I was like, that's dark green. That's not what that comes. But when you think of being prepared for the unexpected, Carrie, what comes to your mind?
Well, I'm a big go bag person. I believe you've got to have a go bag. Every classroom should have a go bag. The director team, the administrative team should have a go bag for the things that are something that happens really quick. Like there's a fire, there's an unexpected weather change, or the thing people don't like to think about, but that we have to be somewhat aware of, is somebody is walking around with a weapon in your area, and so you guys all need to shelter in place. But in that bag needs to be stuff to keep the kids entertained. Everybody's like, okay, I've got the emergency releases. Great. You've also got 42 children. How are you going to keep those 42 children engaged for a half an hour while the police take care of what needs to be taken care of, or until, the parents come pick kids up if there's been a fire or something like that? So you need to have bubbles or books or whatever works for you to keep 42 kids entertained, or 176, or however many children entertained. So part of it is, that's the first thing that comes to mind. And then standard operating procedures is probably really what Kate wanted me to say.
Well, if we go to the next slide.
yeah. I think that was a great point though, Carrie. That's something I did not think about. I ran summer camps at my sports facility, and I had a little guy, cute as a button, but he sure did pull that fire alarm, and we had to get out, and I had 70 kids in a parking lot that I was trying to entertain in the middle of July in Florida, and it was hot and they were feisty. So that's a great tip, having that bag of tricks there.
And changing it out based on the weather, because if you're in Minnesota and it's October, it can either be 85 or it can be 32. Like, you don't know. And so you need to have different stuff in your bag in the middle of summer and in the winter, and those transition times like October, that's hard for stocking those bags.
Well, the other thing to think about is a lot of times we are doing those preparedness drills. Everybody's got emergency drills, right? We're doing them every month, some sort of emergency drills, but we don't necessarily go all the way through the process, because if you had, you would have known exactly what Carrie just talked about. And it's amazing how many times we work with directors and programs that are like, never really thought about that. But when we think about the natural disasters, most of us know what that looks like. But when we think of medical, okay, now that we've all thought of COVID, right? A lot of times we're like, yeah, COVID, but there's also the flu. There are other things that make medical disasters in a program happen. It may not be across the country, but it's still potentially at your program. We have economic disasters.
I had another medical one that people forget about, which is like seizures. Like, one of the kids or one of the staff has a seizure. Is there stuff in your bag to be prepared for that?
Absolutely. But from an economic standpoint, and again, these are things that can happen overnight, and sometimes you're not really prepared for them. So economically, what happens if you have a major employer in your community that literally overnight shuts its doors? Right. Everybody's unemployed. As a childcare program, you are impacted, right? We have bankruptcies, stock market, right? You just never know. And then we've got legal issues. Definitely never anybody's fun one, but this is more than just, maybe a parent making some sort of claim. Right now, we've got programs across the country where we have directors who are doing everything they can to keep their program afloat, and they're unaware that the owner hasn't paid rent. And then all of a sudden, they show up one day, and there is a lock and a chain on the doors. And obviously, they weren't prepared. So we need to remember as directors that emergency preparedness is not just natural disasters. It's not just COVID, but we have a lot of other issues. And personnel emergencies, we never know what is going to happen. And I don't really like this story as an analogy, but I want you to think it through. What happens if you were in a car accident? You were hit by a bus on the way to work. Does your staff know where things are? Do you have it in place where your program is still going to be able to operate? Or in Carrie's case, all of a sudden you're told you're on bed rest. You can't go anywhere. Or that baby came, in my case, a month early. Right. So, and I didn't do that once, I did that twice. Or unexpected C-sections. Like there's all kinds of things that you yourself as personnel, but also your staff can have happen that are unexpected. Next slide. We'll save this one. I was gonna say this one may not work either. So yeah, we'll go ahead and bump to that fire safe. A lot of times, Carrie, you and I've talked about this, and we think about things from a personal standpoint. So I would suspect that probably everybody online has heard of, if they don't have one, which is a fire safe at home. Carrie, what are things that at home you keep in your fire safe?
The deed to my house, my passport, a certain amount of cash, because cash always works. My kids' birth certificates. I think there's some others. Oh, my diplomas. I know some people hang them on the wall. I put them in the safe because I'm like, I paid a lot of money for that. I need to be protected. So those are things I keep in my fire safe. What are things that does your school have a fire safe or something along those lines? And I hear some people go, well, I store everything in the cloud. Is the cloud the same as a fire safe?
Well, I have a strong opinion about this one. And I want to remind everybody that when you've got a fire safe, the one thing that needs to be in there are things that you can actually grab and get to. So if you're in an emergency situation, and let's think wildfires, hurricanes, a lot of times cell service, Wi-Fi, those things are all down. If your building is up in flames, your building doesn't have any Wi-Fi. So keep that in mind, that if you don't have hard copies, it doesn't matter how much is on the cloud. If you can't get there, you can't get that information. So I want you to definitely keep that in mind. And so my suggestion always is going to be that regularly. So may not have to be monthly, but at least every time you have new students come through, everything gets printed at least once and preferably kept off-site. Because if the building goes up, you still need to be able to get to that information. So just having everything printed at your building isn't necessarily going to help you, but we want your business to be fire safe. So that's the term we're going to use as we kind of talk through the rest of the afternoon or this presentation when we talk about being emergency prepared or being prepared for an emergency.
Yeah. And if you haven't ever lived through something where cell service is down and where there's limited electricity, this doesn't occur to you. Kate and I have been in this industry long enough that we were directors on 9/11, which, was just a couple of days ago, the anniversary of it. And cell service was down in large parts of the country because so many people were trying to call each other. And we've had family in hurricane zones and wildfire zones. And you can't, if you had to access your tablet to get the emergency contact numbers for your parents, it was not going to work. So you have to have a paper copy of those emergency contact numbers so that you can reach people.
I like that.
Absolutely.
I like that as well. I know we, unfortunately had a hurricane coming up on our year anniversary, and the whole town of Cape Coral, Fort Myers, we were shut down. And I do keep a notebook. I like to keep everything online, but a part of me still got that old school mentality, and it sure did come in handy because you could grab that notebook of families and go, because there was no cell service, nothing around here to communicate. So.
Absolutely. And one of the things with that, just to kind of jump on that, is it's not just our families. We need to know where our staff, and, depending on the size of your community, it may be worth having the addresses, because you may want to go check on your staff if you've got natural disasters coming through, and you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, I lived in a community that was Austin, Texas, because I know that came up earlier, and it was a suburb, and we had a bunch of fires coming through our town, and literally, if you were watching the news, you didn't necessarily know if that wasn't your street. And I had staff that were on some of those streets that had some of those fires coming through, and it was just, turned out to be okay. Everybody was fine. But we did have one of our families who lost their house. And so, we were able to rally behind them and be there for them. But it is one of those things that, not just phone numbers, but you got to have addresses. Because remember, if your cell phones aren't working, you need to have a way, you need to know where they are. And so definitely remember that. So we'll go ahead and flip to the next slide. All right. So, Carrie, when you start to think about other things to be prepared about, what pops into your mind?
I mean, we already know my mind goes all kinds of places. So I want to make sure that you have standard operating procedures for everything that pops into your head at 3 o'clock in the morning and you wake up and you're like, oh my God, what if this thing happens? So if I've woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning with the what if, I don't know, a grizzly bear comes into our program and uses the trash can to get food, then I need to write a standard operating procedure for that type of event. But also it's about having a good network of people that I can reach out to when I've got an issue. I need to have somebody who I can talk to if we've got a legal emergency. I need to have somebody who I can talk to if we've got a medical issue going on. We end up doing some of that for a lot of our directors because they'll be like, we have a flea infestation in our playground. What do we do? And they reach out to us. But that's another kind of weird thing. So part of it is building out your standard operating procedures of what do I do if there's a tornado, a hurricane, the police notify us that we need to do a lockdown drill. If we've got impetigo running through our program, if we get sued, if we have a drunk parent show up, like I have a lot of those things that they pop into my head and I write up, okay, this is what we would do. And then train the staff on those things, not all at once, because that's too much, but do them one at a time over the course of the year or a couple of years so that people know what's going on. And having a network of people who I can reach out to if I have a type of emergency I did not know about.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes. Kind of having that. I know we rely a lot on a PR crisis team or someone in those situations. But I think it would be interesting if the audience wants to make some comments in the chat on maybe some operational procedures that they developed that are unique, because hopefully none of us have bears coming in the facility to eat the trash, but who knows? I mean, it depends on where you're at. So no,
I would suspect there's been more than one raccoon floating around anyway.
Oh, I would say you're right. Okay, that's great. I like that. So yeah, we'll move along, but I just wanted to, if the audience has anything that they'd like to share in there, feel free to jump in.
Absolutely. Carrie, you mentioned creating a standard operating procedure, or shortened as an SOP. And I realize that for a lot of people, we use the term standard operating procedure or SOP, and people may not understand where to start, what you put in them, why they might need them. And I love this picture, to be perfectly honest, because this is exactly how I felt the first time I ever wrote a series of standard operating procedures, because I went into a program that didn't have them. I was there while the director was on maternity leave, and I knew we needed some SOPs, and so I created some. And I did. I literally had everything across the table. I had the staff handbooks, I had the school guardian handbooks, I had different types of notes that were written up in files and in notebooks and on Post-it notes. And I had it all in one place. If we've got folks listening today, Carrie, who have maybe never written a standard operating procedure, or maybe they've got one and their thought behind emergency preparedness was that they do those fire drills, where would you encourage them to start, and what might be the first piece?
Again, different people think different ways. For me, the first piece after I've titled it, right, is what are the resources I'm going to need in that situation? So I do it sort of like a cookbook or a recipe, right? So I put the ingredients at the top. So we're going to use the bear because it's the most extreme one we've thought of, right? So a bear gets into your trash and is coming back repeatedly. Okay, what am I going to need? I'm going to need the contact information for our trash collection. I'm going to need to put where are supplies where I can get a better trash can. I'm going to need some locks for those trash cans. I'm going to need the contact information for the animal control. And I'm going to need a training video for my staff on properly bear securing your rubbish, right? Because there's people who move in who don't understand bears, and they need to understand bears. And then so I put the ingredients at the top, and then I write down my steps one by one, and I do it on Post-it notes. Kate and I are notorious for using Post-it notes and index cards because you can move them around while you're trying to decide what goes first, what goes second. And so I put the steps, and then I go, oh, wait, I forgot. I got to notify the parents. So I got to move that Post-it note around. I'm a kinetic learner. I like to move things around. I know you could do it on, a document, but I have to touch it. So that's how I do it. And then I do the steps again, just like a recipe card.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, I think that for a lot of us, it seems like, oh no, this is a lot of work. I don't have one, or I have a basic one. I saw somebody put that in the comment. And you know what? A basic one is great, but it's really hard to do the next piece, which is training your staff. It's my sign to swipe the slide deck.
To the next slide.
Yep.
Yes.
This is not a swipey. This is not that kind of swipe. When we're training on the standard operating procedure, one of the things that you really need to make sure that you're doing with your staff is walking them through the entire experience, kind of like what we talked about earlier when we were talking about what did you do with those kids for 45 minutes in the parking lot, right? And so it's not about, do you know how to do the drill? It's actually doing the entire experience. Do you have what you need to be able to call people? Do you have those battery chargers, already charged for your phone? Do you have the right batteries and the right cords for your current phone? I went back through one of the, to-go bags we had and realized that all of the cables, because I went, oh, it's got all the cables. Yeah, all those cables were for phones we don't have anymore. And, a lot of times, you probably have a drawer full of those batteries that you picked up somewhere. how many of them are charged? What do you have? Do you need a solar charge battery? What are some of the things that you might need to have? So really run the entire scenario through with your staff and think about all the ones Carrie mentioned. So Carrie, I know you talked about the bear in the garbage can. But we've also got, what are some of the weather ones that people need to probably think through more than just doing the drill?
Well, the one that was sort of hitting me in the head as you were talking was, we do the fire drill and we do it exactly the same time every time, but you have to have a secondary fire exit. So do you do the fire drill occasionally where you've blocked the primary exit because that's where the fire is? So that's part of what she means by walking through the whole scenario. What if the fire is by your primary exit? We have to go out a different way. Hurricanes, tornadoes, chemical spills, wildfires, mudslides, earthquakes, volcanoes, whatever the natural disasters are near you are what we want to think about. But then also there's those man-made disasters that we don't have applied for, but I think we have to think about.
Well, but a lot of those we can learn from, right? So let's think this through, Carrie. Like, although you may be in a place that doesn't have wildfires, do you have a building to the right or to the left of you that could possibly catch on fire, right? I mean, so you may not be preparing for a wildfire that's coming through your community, but are you prepared for lightning striking the building next to you and setting it ablaze, right? And that goes the same with even, again, floods. We like to think about floods being strictly, I don't know, nature, right? But that's not the case, right? We get floods from all kinds of things. I mean, I wasn't in Portugal, but I don't know if any of you saw, but, Portugal, there was a town in Portugal that had an entire flood in the entire village of wine because they had 2 million gallons of wine that, from vats that broke. May not be the worst case scenario.
That doesn't sound terrible.
Yeah, there's always flooding. And if you've never been part of a fire experience, fire is not just fire, right? You've got fire, you've got smoke, you've got way too much water. So even if it wasn't your building that was on fire, you may still end up with flooding in your program. So, as you're listening to us all talk about, and you're seeing people in the comments talk about their different potential natural disasters, don't forget those man-made ones that Carrie was talking about, because the prep is going to be very similar. And so we want to make sure that we are prepared for those. All right. So Carrie, you talked about to-go bags. Next page.
Okay. So what goes in your to-go bag is going to depend on your area. And again, what kind of kids you're having to keep entertained. I would always recommend that each classroom have one and that the administrative staff have a different one. And the administrative staff has all of those contact information things and a backup battery for a cell phone. And the location of where there is a hardwired phone. Somebody near you has a landline so that you can call people on a landline if you can't access it in your building. And this bag comes with you if you're doing a shelter in place or if you're evacuating the building, right? So people are like, oh, this is my fire drill bag. And they leave it in the classroom if you're doing the shelter in place drill. And I'm like, that has a flashlight in it. You need the flashlight because you're in a stairwell is a very common place for the shelter in place. It's dark in stairwells. The kids are going to be uncomfortable. So maybe not just a flashlight, but having a pop light, one of those battery operated pop lights is a great thing to have in there. I wouldn't store the batteries in the light because those have a tendency to corrode, but I would have a baggie that has the pop light and the batteries in it. That would also have emergency medical supplies, including an EpiPen or anything else you would need for known medical complications for any of your staff or kids. Epinephrine is just the most common, but you might need to have glycogen if you've got people who have problems with blood sugar regulation because they're diabetic or hypoglycemic or something like that. Things to keep kids entertained. If you're in a situation, if you're in a place where if there's a huge storm, it's going to be really hard for people to find you. Somebody mentioned snowstorms. Do you have signaling devices in your go bag to signal during the snowstorms? Do you have things in your bag to signal in case of flooding? Do you have in one of those really small inflatable rafts, or do you have a pool noodle that you're taking with when you go? Because you can put a lot of kids holding on to a pool noodle and keep people safer than they otherwise would be in a flood, right? So what are the kinds of things like that that you need to have because of your location? It gets really dark during a tornado for about 10 minutes. Do you need to have a signaling device at your program for that 10 minutes? Probably not if you only operate during traditional childcare hours, but if you're a 24-hour program, you absolutely need a nighttime signaling device. So what goes in your bag is going to depend on your location. I can't give you the perfect list. I can give you a pretty good one. And in a book that Kate and I wrote called Lola and the Hurricane, which is about helping kids be mentally prepared and emotionally prepared for a hurricane. In that book, we have a to-go bag list for this reason, right? Because most of them are just like, don't forget your medications. And I'm like, yeah, what are you going to do with that kid for 2 days?
Right.
You need to have things to do for the kids. So those are things I think are important in the to-go bag. Also,
Absolutely.
some drinking. Forgot about
So
that.
I want to make sure in your to-go bag, you also have those resources you just talked about, right? You know, do you have the phone numbers written down someplace of the other people in your community? If you've got businesses on either side of you across the street from you, do you know what the business is that your employer actually, that your parents actually work for? Don't forget, I know Carrie talked about toys. I'm going to talk to you about food. Let's be realistic. If you've got 42 kids out in the parking lot for 40 minutes, somebody's going to be hungry. And it only takes one hungry kid to turn into an angry kid. And then you've got all kinds of a mess. So always having, you know, some snacks on hand that can work. And again, even if they're not in your go bag, but you know where they are. So the other thing that I've done sometimes is I've had these to go bags, but on the front of it will be an index card, safety pins with the 3 things I might need to grab. And it might say hard drive, which would be, in my case, it's a backup hard drive, you know, case of water, 3 boxes of granola bars, right? So whatever that might be, because I'm not going to put a case of water to live in my to-go bag. And most of my classrooms, although they might have a bottle or 2, they probably don't have enough water bottles for every kid in the classroom. So again, although we want to think that we're going to remember this, you're not gonna. You are gonna have so much going on that you want to make sure that this is as easy for you as possible. And although there is usually emergency preparedness seasons, so right now, right now is hurricane preparedness season.
It is.
And so we want to make sure that, you're thinking through all those natural disasters, but remember, just put it on your calendar to happen, that you're reviewing it at least 3 times a year. And, don't leave those granola bars, batteries, water bottles in there for years. And it's okay if you don't use it. You had it.
Right. That's
It's
right.
a kind of insurance.
Absolutely.
That's a great
So-
point.
Yeah. So if we want to go to the next slide.
All right, perfect.
Okay, it's tipping sideways.
Sorry.
She's in the wine flood.
Don't tell anybody. Yes. So money is a huge part of this puzzle, and we just want to make sure that you've also got all of your finances backed up. And are you prepared emergency wise financially for an emergency? And so, Carrie, I know in my head, things that pop into my head are, do I have a couple of credit cards? But we run into a lot of people with experience with not having the right or enough insurance.
Absolutely. And there aren't very many people who specialize in insurance for childcare programs. And so you might have riders for for paddling children. Okay, if you can't paddle children, you don't need that rider. But you do need probably some other types of riders that are specific for childcare. Do you need business interruption insurance? Do you need unowned vehicle insurance? Those kinds of things. And we can get really comfortable and go, oh, that's okay. It's insured. It's going to take 60 to 90 days for that money to come in. So you need to have a line of credit or enough money in an emergency savings account or something that will tide you over for that 90 days. And sometimes the insurance takes 180 days. And that's a huge amount of time. Something we didn't talk about in the emergency bag is cash or a reloadable credit card, debit card.
Absolutely. And so the other thing I want to talk about related to, because you brought up insurance, every insurance agent is going to ask you for a list of what you lost. When is the last time you did an inventory with pictures, with prices, with receipts of what's in your building? I'm guessing that if we're lucky, we've got one or two of you on the call that have that. And if you do, I'm guessing that it's also probably in the cloud. So take the time, give yourself a date of when you're going to do this, because this conversation is not really an if topic. It's a when and how prepared are you topic, right? So if you're not going to do it, in the chat box, tell us when are you going to do it, and then share on Inspire 360 or reach out to Carrie and I and let us know when you got it done. Share your story with others, because I'm guessing that if you've got childcare centers and directors that you work with, that you network with, right? Chances are they haven't done it either. So you get to be the community hero and encourage everybody in your community to kind of come together, get these together and buy them in bulk. A couple of childcare centers buying a whole bunch of bright red backpacks. They don't have to be the fire preparedness backpacks. Hopefully everybody knows that was just for a visual aid. Right? You can do this, and it doesn't have to be all you. If you're the director, you can be in charge of the one that's for you. You can train your teachers to prepare theirs, and that can be part of their regular training.
Yeah. And when it comes to, circling back to the insurance thing, having receipts for everything you've ever bought for your school can seem incredibly daunting. But when you have a staff person who you're like, oh, our numbers are down, I'm going to go ahead and send someone home. And they're like, but I need the hours. Great. Give them a camera and have them go around every single classroom and take pictures of everything that you guys own and everything that's in the resource closet and in your supply closet. Like, have them take pictures of all of that, and that can be your backup for insurance. We don't have to have all those receipts. It's too late to go back in time. I don't have a DeLorean. I can't do it. But you can use this other method to get that information.
I think another good point that I thought of is having your insurance contact information in your bag, because that was a big thing for myself. I got out of town for this last hurricane, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, where do I find my insurance policy and my contact? Who do I contact? I was not prepared with that. And I thought I had everything in my car. But so just having that insurance policy and who to contact in that bag as well, I think would be a good add-on.
Absolutely. Sonia made a suggestion about having individual comfort bags for the kids. And it depends on your program, but that can be something that is very helpful, especially if you've got a lot of kids having anxiety about a specific type of emergency. Having the classroom make their own comfort bags is a great way to lower that anxiety. It's a great idea.
And one final thought as you were thinking through all of the financial bits and pieces as we start to wrap up. And it was a great segue. Thank you so much for segueing into remembering to have your insurance agent's number. Other phone numbers to remember, your utility company with your utility number. Don't forget, how many of you have things on Amazon subscriptions, right? Believe it or not, Amazon doesn't always know if maybe they can't deliver something to you. So go in there and cancel that subscription. So have a list of your vendors, so if you've got QuickBooks, again, I know it's so funny because we all talk about cloud-based and being efficient electronically. And here I am telling you to print down and use your 500 pieces of paper and a ream of paper, because you want all of your vendors, you want to know your account number, you want to know when you usually pay them, what they usually charge you for. You need all of your staff's contact information, you need all of your parents' contact information. And we really want to make sure that you guys are as prepared as possible. You can do this by creating your own to-go notebook. You can have a 3-ring binder, you can have a couple of 3-ring binders. You can just print it all and stick it in your fire safe at your house. You can have 3 or 4 copies. Don't be afraid to have more than one copy of this information. You never know when you're going to need it.
You can have it on an external hard drive that you take to your house and put in your fire safe at the house and you have paper to print it out later. We just want to make sure you've got it, not just in the cloud, not just physically at the school, but in a third location. And because sometimes you can't access the cloud because your network is down. And we've got to remember that. It is great for most of the time, but if you're in a hurricane, a tornado, a bear attack, I want you to have something else. I'm just going to be all about the bears today.
You're going to be about the bears and I'm going to be about the wine flood. So you guys are going to be doing your own version of a wine flood. So the other thing I want to make sure that you guys really do think about as we kind of wrap up is making sure, again, more than one person knows where all this information is. So we've talked about having it in more than one place, but also that more than one person, because again, if you are suddenly, in the hospital or in the emergency room, or you are no longer able to do things, if you don't have those physical pieces of paper with you, can somebody get to it? So hopefully that helps everybody. If we want to go to the last couple of slides, it's just some information about us. If you guys want to follow us, this is our podcast, Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie. If you haven't figured it out, Carrie and I have known each other for just a little while. We are cousins, and so it does kind of come across that sometimes we are just a little, like cousins. And so with that, and we've both been in childcare each for over 30 years, both started as registered family homes and both worked in centers and owned centers and worked for school districts. And so we're just really excited to be able to share all of that experience with you. And we also have a book, if you want to get that, which is From Overwhelmed to I Got This. And this is all of our contact information. You guys are welcome to reach out to us. We are happy to answer any questions. Even if you're not in Texas, I actually started in Ohio. We do a lot of work up in the New England area. Carrie's worked with programs in California. I've worked with them in Oklahoma and Florida. So we are happy to bounce ideas as well as be there as a solution.
Well, Kate and Carrie, thank you both so much. And this book looks great. I know we're going to put a link in so that the audience can find exactly where to get a hold of that book. But we just really appreciate you had some great ideas. I think definitely got people to think about. If there's any questions, now's the time as we kind of come to the end. Feel free to reach out in the Q&A, ask any questions. I know someone had mentioned a list of items, like a sample list. Would that be something we could get a hold of or that we have? we would be happy to post that on our social media as well as kind of a webinar and on our blog. So that
Yeah,
would be
I
very
can-
helpful.
I can pull it out of the book and add a couple of things that we talked about here and send that over to you. Absolutely.
Perfect. So that's actually in the book as well.
It is.
Well, it's not in the Overwhelmed book. It's in the one we were talking about before, the Lola and the Hurricane.
Oh, yes. Oh,
That
nice.
is,
And they shared that, yeah, Lola and the Hurricane, that link was also stuck in chat. And
Yeah.
for those of you who want to know, that book is also available as an audiobook. So it's designed for kids, and it's actually read, well, she was still a minor when she read it.
Oh. Oh.
So yeah. But
Well, Kate and Carrie, thank you so much. You two have been fantastic. And like I said, I know our audience got some great information and they have those links to share. And I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for doing this with us. It was a pleasure to meet both of you and have you join this webinar today.
yeah, and thank you, Nicole, for continuing to be really good at sharing links and stuff like that. We hadn't planned on talking about Lola, but that was just where my brain went when we were talking. So
No, that's great. I love it. I love the name. So that's great. I'm glad that we were able to do that. And Nicole, yes, thank you so much for getting those links in there. And Sarah's running the screens. So we're going to move to a couple of things. But again, Kate and Carrie, thank you so much for being our special guests today. And just everybody, a reminder, if you want to get your CEU credits, you can send a request for that. The link is also in the chat as well. So you do get some credits for your hour with us today. Then we'll move on to the next one here. Just another little bit of housekeeping here. We have an ebook series. It is free. And our next ebook series is Leveraging Technology to Streamline Your Childcare Operations. And we've talked a lot today about, what if we lose that technology? That can cause a lot of havoc as well. But this will be our next is Leveraging Technology, Streamline Your Operations, and optimize your staff training, etc. So please, it's free. You can find our ebook series, the chat. I think Nicole put that in there as well, or Sarah, one of them will put in the link for that. So check the chat for a link to our ebook series. And save the date for our next webinar. We will have the wonderful Chris Gamble on top financial secrets. Well, don't we all need that? So that will be Wednesday, October 18th at 1:30 p.m. Profit maximization, expert advice from Chris Gamble. So please mark your calendars, save the date for that. We will have the link to register for our next webinar with Mr. Gamble as well. So look for that link. And of course, this is just where you can find and ask questions, reach out to customer service at Inspire Care. Those actually come directly to me if you have questions or you need anything or you want to learn more just about Inspire Care 360, about our IC 360 rep or anything that we have to offer. Please feel free to reach out. And we just want to tell everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you got a lot of great information from Kate and Carrie that you can take back with you. And we hope to see you next time. So have just an awesome rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.